Good day and welcome to yet another edition of Game Time with Marco. Thank you for joining us once again, and apologies for the sound quality of our last episode. Something happened there, we don't know what happened, but we sure fixed it up now. And today again we have another very important guest that has graced us with their presence here in our studios. He's Mr. Jochen Traut, the former Secretary General or General Secretary at the Namibia Football Association under the second Normalisation Committee, and also a former club president of SKW Football Club. For those of you that don't know SKW Football Club, I don't know which rock you've been living under. One of the, I think, the most properly run clubs in the country. We'll get into that with Mr. Traut. And also a former CRAN employee, CEO for that matter, right?
Yeah,
CEO,
CEO. Yeah.
Yes. Mr. Traut, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah. So Mr. Traut, just tell us a bit about yourself. Who is Jochen Traut?
I'm born, bred, German-speaking Namibian, third generation. I was born on Windhoek. Went to, at that time it was still Orban school. Then we got the German school later on, so I went to the today Delta schools until grade 7. And then I went over to HTS, the technical high school. And then I did, when I finished my matric exams, the really last day, the next day I started at the post office. Remember that the post office was one, and then it was later split into the telecom and the NAMPost as we know it today. And I started my career as a engineer in ICT, in the industry that I was for 44 years. And worked my ranks through all those things, yeah.
So from ITS, you went straight to telecom as an engineer?
I started my training there. I did my normal technician things, then the master's diploma, did the BCom, helped with this commercialization of telecom, to create Telecom Namibia, did the whole marketing part and business development on it. And part of my functions there as a business development manager was to set up MTC. So I set up with the foreign partners we had and MTC. So I was the first employee at MTC. So that is my yeah.
Interesting. And then growing up, how was it? I know you grew up under difficult circumstances for the country at that time. How was it growing up in terms of the sporting, your sporting history?
Now, myself at primary school I played soccer, but when I went to the technical high school there was no soccer. So I started playing hockey.
Okay.
So, and then due to I was under 21 Namibian hockey. I played when I was studying at Val and Val Triangle. I played for the Val Train under 21. When I came back, I had to make a choice. Hockey took a lot of time and things like that, and then sort of took a back step. And then the other thing was with hockey at that time was when the winter time came in, hockey people didn't have floodlights and things like that. So hockey started to die down because you couldn't train on weekdays. So hockey went a little bit back. But my soccer career actually started when I was at the Delta school on a school board, and my sons were playing football there, and I realized they need some help with coaching. Understanding hockey and having played football and being a football lover, I then started getting involved in coaching at the Delta schools for all the ages, and this is how I then got involved with that. And due to the wintertime issues, I started then playing for the old boys at SKW, just to keep myself busy and fit and things like after hours. So this is how I got into football, really.
So then let's fast forward now. Your football administration, you started by coaching your kids and playing for the old guys. Now, when did the administration part come in?
Remember when at that time at schools, the NSSU was not functioning. There was no schools, organized schools football, like it is today. I mean, nothing has changed in 20 years. And that's a pity because schools, and then their focus also changed. The schools were not focusing on sports anymore than like in the past. So this is when we decided from the school sides to start taking the soccer to the clubs. So the HPS, St. Paul's, Delta schools. We took then the clubs, the football to the clubs like Ramblers, DTS, SKW. And then we started to realize, look, we need to do something else and organize our own leagues while I was still at the schools, in the school boards. And this is when I remember we created a street house league, where we played our own organized youth football soccer. And this is really when I got involved. And this is then, and then during that time, I don't know the years, but then there were some SKW old boys, if I can say it, or active footballers that decided, look, we want to go into the Premier League, the Premiership. Yeah. And this is when really got actively, because then we realized, okay, we bought the status, we got into football as SKW, and then there was, remember that Windhoek Declaration so many years ago, when we realized, look, we need a youth academy. And I think this is when we started setting up the youth academy at SKW, which I think is pretty much a success story. And still today, I mean, you can see they're all over with that partaking. So this is when I helped a few guys that are really setting up the youth academy as a feeder for the Premiership team.
Yeah. Now, looking at you said there was no organized school football at that time. Let's talk about the importance of organized school football. How important is it as a country for us to have a really organized school set up in all the regions?
It's critical. It's a must. I mean, we must really, I mean, we're spending a lot of time now and focusing a lot on our brave warriors or the brave gladiators. But from a football nation, if you want to look into countries like Morocco, where did it start and when did the success come? Only 10 years, 12 years later, they had a long-term vision. They started with youth football development. And I think this is where there must be a decision now. Will football be run by private academies, which is also dangerous, because there's a lot of academies, but they're just there for the money. They're not there for the development. So you need to have that. I feel NSSU has a role to play, and they must check up and then get the youth leagues running at all the schools nationwide. Remember, the kids don't worry that it must be a grass pitch. They just want to play football. Just have the poles there and a field, and make sure there is a person that understands coaching. Look at youth level, you don't really need to understand tactics and things like that. It's about the skills and things like that. I mean, and then you need a ball per player basically, because this is how it works. So I think NSSU must really come to the party, and there must be youth football on schools level, at least primary schools. Maybe then later on you can take it into the clubs or something like that. But have it there. Sport is not only, or schools are not only there for education. Football brings a lot with it.
Sports in general, actually. Yeah.
Brings a lot of, the team spirit, working together as a team, disciplines, and things like it. That's all part of football.
Who should be pushing the agenda that NSSU must push right now? Who should really push NSSU? Is it the NFA or is it government?
Jointly. They need to do work together. I mean, because the NFA must also make sure there's a youth development program. Because FIFA starts off with all those, what is it called?
Development programs.
Development, basics football, grassroots football. It's there. And then you bring the skills, and NFA helps with the training of coaches, training of referees and things like this. This is where the NFA comes in. The school just then provides the facilities, the teachers and things like it, but the training of those teachers. And there's a lot of things. There's all these apps that are available that FIFA has developed. I know even the Ministry of Education has apps where you can actually get information how to coach on different levels, because at under 7, under 9, it's just playing. You don't have a lot of tactics and things like that. Just stop the ball, hook up, and pass the ball. I mean, these are the basic tactics. And then you go on later on with more bigger field tactics. And then as the kid grows, the real football tactics come into play.
But do you think now government is aware of that there are such things like those apps that you're referring to, that FIFA provides sort of funding and training, and that NFA should do this? Is the government aware? Is NFA aware that the government should be aware of that?
No, I think government is aware. But I mean, government also has its issues on the financial side. There's a lot of, it's easy to criticize and easy to make politics out of football. But there's a reality that government only has so much money. But when you look into the broader picture of the nation, not every person is a sports person. but everybody needs education and health. So government has to prioritize, and whether they even now make promises they will build all those stadiums, the question is, where does the money come from? And where does the money come from to maintain the stuff? So the government has a challenge.
So what role then does a private sector play in this?
I think that is the sad part of football at the moment, that the private sector is really not involved through sponsorships. I mean, when you look at cricket and rugby, there's a lot of sponsorships, but for one or other reason, people are shying away. And there's enough businesses. If you go to Gubabes and see all the businesses there, they toch can support their local soccer, regional football. If you go up to the north, when you go from Ondangwa to Oshivelo, all those businesses that you see there, why can't they come up? I see, and I'm glad to notice, here and there you see now private companies coming in and sponsoring tournaments and things like that. But we need a much bigger support for our top tier levels, top tiers and second levels, where private sector is involved through sponsorships mainly. But then again, the house must be in order of the NFA and everything. You know, there must be trust. And I don't think that trust is there yet.
At the moment, I'm glad you brought up cricket and rugby. I mean, we see cricket now, they're developing their own stadium. I think it's about 70, 80 million Namibian dollars. There's so much sponsors. The other time I attended an event and they were counting 26 plus sponsors that have made cricket to be what it is right now. When I tried to find out why it's like that, they brought the issue of trust. They have trust, the businesses have trust and belief in cricket. Why is it that they don't have trust and belief in our football, even at grassroots level?
I mean, because if you just read your newspapers, all the WhatsApp groups, all the infighting in clubs, the fighting within the NFA itself is a mess. I mean, when we were there, I mean, I know what I'm talking about. You try to replace your council members and bring in new blood. You change the SG. But the problem lies within the NFA, the people sitting there doing the work. You have to change that as well. You need to get new, fresh blood in there to fix it. I mean, when I was there, I mean, the people, and I wanted to bring in change, they were just blatantly telling me, you know what, when FIFA and you are gone, we will just redo what we want, what we had done in the past. And that's exactly what happened. FIFA left, I left. Everything that FIFA and the interim committee done is gone. Nothing has been implemented anymore. We had a structure, there's a new structure. We had job descriptions. Are all these new positions job descriptions? Do they have gradings? I doubt it. We implemented policies. I don't know whether the policies are being implemented. The people that are there are the people that boycotted everything. And that is a problem. Now you can change the SG, but the people underneath, if you don't change them, nothing will change.
I wanted us to talk about NFA later, but you have brought it in, and I see the passion that you have. Let's talk about your time at NFA with the NC. When you were brought in, what was your mandate?
The mandate was basically just to run the day-to-day affairs and bring in some of those policies and reorganize the structure. That was the main task. Remember, the interim committee or the normalization committee doesn't have the same powers than the normal council has or things like it, because they're just running like the interim the normalization committee was not allowed to start projects like upgrading the technical field there. I mean, it's a must. I mean, it needs a new field to make it bigger. There's a huge opportunity there. Or not an opportunity, it's a requirement. But that only the current council or the elected council can do it. We didn't have a TD at time, so for the development and things like that. So, and then when you look at the real problem with the NFA is a regulator of football. So it should develop and things like that. It should not run leagues. Because that's not, it should enable the people to run the leagues, but the league should be managed separately by the region.
And they just regulate it.
Yeah. But now, NFA is, and that's another big challenge that I think that needs to change. The NFA is running 33 leagues. For 3.3 million people, you have 33 leagues. I mean, it's crazy.
Do they have the capacity to run those 33 leagues?
No, but it's not their duty. It's not the NSF's duty to run leagues. They must enable things, they must have the regulations in place and then manage it. And then if things are not managing, then you interfere and make sure, like FIFA is doing. FIFA is not running the NFA. They help us with training, bringing all those things in place. So FIFA is there to help, and they will help. But they also will only help if they see if the money that goes in is being utilized. For example, I want to know now, all the money they spend to get structures in place and things like it under Normalisation Committee. The first day the new council came, that was all pushed away and something new was placed in there. Now, doesn't it give a bad picture to FIFA?
We'll come to that. Okay, so when you came in, I'm sure you did an assessment of that institution, and you listed the priorities. Give us your top 5 priorities that needed to be fixed when you got there.
No, the thing was, number one, the work attitude. I mean, the people were just coming and going whenever they wanted to come and go.
You mean the staff?
The staff. Yeah. It was very a lack of life there. So I implemented like a sign-in book and things like it. And then we started bringing in all those policies and things like it. But there was definitely a resistance to change. I mean,
so the culture, the working culture there was very bad because I once said Hilda Basson Namujebo, the chairperson of the first NFA council, and that's exactly what she said. She said that there was a board which people would come in and say so and so in, so and so out, but you go to the office of a person who said to be in, you find them they're out, and the person who said to be out, you find them they're in, and nobody really cared. I
mean, that was really the first thing. The people there had this entitlement culture, no productivity, but very knowledgeable. And they hold their grandson and things like that. They know what's going on, but they're not implementing it. If you have a meeting, you want to solve a problem, it's always issues. Like, for example, the players' registration on the electronic system. It's available for 10 years, but there was a blank refusal to implement it, and there was a budget of millions to implement the eConnect. We implemented it immediately. There were hiccups and things like it. But there was resistance, and there's still a resistance from inside. I don't know why, but the eConnect should be as wide as to the NSSU, for example. If you have a youth tournament, and like I proposed that for the newspaper cup, you register those players immediately. Then they're on the system. The player has a FIFA number, and then you can trace those players. All these youth leagues, Hopsol, all those players must come on eConnect. So you know immediately from which club he was, where the player goes there, and if it becomes a national player, finally money goes back into the clubs.
Yes, that makes sense. So you are saying that the work ethic at NFA was the problem. Was it because of lack of leadership? Was it because people knew that you can't do anything, they are permanently employed, you can't fire them? Regardless of that, they have all the knowledge, and you can't get rid of them because you need that knowledge.
No. FIFA will support any new person that comes in there. And that is what I think people are wrong. You can get rid of those people without falling apart. FIFA will have sent you support.
So why don't we get rid of them?
We tried. But you know, the labor law, there's a law to follow and things like it. And that is it. And then, we got rid of some. Some are re-employed again. So, what do you want?
Okay, what was the other issue that you assessed and thought it needed to be attended?
And then, no policies. No financial policies, how to do procurements and things like follow those things. These policies, no HR policies. So we developed all those policies. But these things don't happen overnight. And now, if they're just shelved now, I don't know, because when I was there, I saw there were so many efforts to get policies in place, but they were never signed off or hardly ever implemented.
By the council?
Yeah, by the previous councils and things like that.
So how does now the lack of those policies now affect the day-to-day running of the NFA?
Look, when I left, I lost a little bit of touch. All I see is what I read in the newspapers and what I read on WhatsApp, and here and there I talk to some people. How things are running now today, I don't know.
No, when you were there?
No. I used my basic experience through all my years in the corporate world to start running it in that way. But then some of those people within the NFL are very destructive. I mean, they don't want to build these things. I mean, I must be honest. And now, even the new SG, he will have the same challenges because he's not a person that comes out of that family.
He's a foreigner.
Yeah,
He's a foreign object.
He will have the same struggles. Now he has a former SG working underneath him. How do you think this will work? I mean, I don't need to understand what is going on there. Just out of my corporate world and how people are acting. You've got an SG appointed by the new council, but the council wanted any other person in place. And they re-employed that now. Now he was the previous SG. I feel sorry for the current SG because there will be issues. It's just logical sense that this is not a healthy situation that's happening there.
Yeah, you're not the first person to say that. I mean, we've also heard that the current SG is just there to rubber stamp things. Things come to him and the rubber stamps. We haven't confirmed it with him. We're trying to get him to come to the show so that we can confirm it with him. And then the other thing also that we found out was at the NFA, there was the FIFA 2010 World Cup in South Africa. They were given a pass. There was a lot of legacy, things that were given to the member associations, especially in the SADC, in the COSAFA region. One of the issues was the pass. The pass was parked there. Since 2010, that pass has never carried any Brave Warriors team members.
Again, one of those things, you give it to a person, and I don't know why they don't want the pass. Yes, it took some time to get all the papers from
South Africa,
which we got. The bus is now ours. It needs to be fixed. It is now standing, when I left, it was standing in the garage to get fixed. License, but again, you give it to a person in there. For one or other reason, they don't want to travel with buses when the national team goes. They rather want to fly, things like that. There's a business case to be made, but I mean, it will take away some of the luxuries of, then we won't fly. With the flight costs, you take the bus, you go to South Africa, play your tournaments there, and you come back with the bus. Yes, it takes 2 days, but these are issues. And then the more I said, where are you with this? What is it? No, just nothing is happening. I mean, you as the SG cannot do it. You just dedicate and you follow up. But if nothing happens and you give warnings and things like that, then it's, I've given a warning for, just a verbal warning. And I got a letter from a lawyer back, 40 pages, for a verbal warning. This is the type of attitude that you have there. So the SG, I feel sorry for him. When you say he's just a rubber stamp, this is what I expected, because even the council, the way they operate these days, the few months that I was there, had nothing to do with corporate governance. It was not healthy.
So it's allegations. We haven't confirmed them that is rubber stamping, but that's the information that we're getting. We still need to come in and deal with those allegations. So based on that, I see lack of leadership at the NFA. There is a lack of leadership.
Yeah, I think there's also something, in my experience as well, that people bypass the SG. They run straight to the council or straight to the FIFA or things like that. They don't respect the hierarchies in the organigram. They do their own thing. When I said, listen, everything that goes out into the press must be sanctioned by me. Next moment, it was just, and I'm not even aware. I get phone calls and I say, oh, this is the sort of thing that is happening. There's no respect for the leadership. As I said, I mean, a lot of talk, but most of those management meetings that we held turned out into like a internal union meeting or something like that. It's just demands here, demands there. But I mean, you cannot give in to all those demands because you have to work through a budget. I mean, that was the other thing, and I think that was the downfall of the previous councillors. There was no budget. That didn't work according to a budget. And again, the concern that I have now is when the last Congress was last year in November, the interim committee, the current
executive council.
The FIFA people, we presented the budget, but said, listen, you have different ideas, you better come up with a new budget, because there will be more coming in, because now the Normalisation committee was limited, so we worked on that budget that we have. Now if there's a proper council in there and a technical director, there will be more money coming in, but they are project related. You cannot use this money, as it happened in the past. Women's money was taken and something else. You have to take that money and do it for that. This is why you can see now there's training courses a lot on referees and things like that, because we have a TD in place, and these are to developing things. And again, the key is the development office. This is the development officer. And money is available for that. So developing of referees, developing of coaches, and all that things, and that things. So that is the fund. The support is there, and the money goes actually for that. FIFA doesn't support leagues financially. The leagues must sort themselves out. So you must have your own money for running the leagues and things like that. And even your national teams. During the interim period, they did fund the Brave Warriors. I doubted that they will get funds now for your international team participations for your.
I don't think they are getting, because we saw recently they went to government to ask for money. They were given, I think, 5 million by government last week or the week before for the 2 matches against Zimbabwe, as well as their day-to-day salaries. Their monthly salaries. But now that's where I wanted to come now. Where does NFA get the money to pay its monthly salaries for the workers like those workers that are
there's an annual fee that comes through from FIFA that is supporting the operations of that's FIFA money.
The operational money.
It's operational money, and that's plenty. It's a lot of money.
When you say it's a lot, how much is it?
Come on, now. Look, I know there was. No, I must lie now. You get it in 2 batches, in January and then in June, and you must always then give financial reports and things like that. And only then they release the money. But it's enough
to run the operations.
To run a lean and mean operations. If you have now this bloated organization, I don't know whether that will be enough. That only the council themselves can tell you how they're managing now with the funds to run the NFA. Because remember when the structure we put in place was 5 senior managers reporting to the SG. Now they've got 9 reporting to the SG. And appointed a few other people that were still part of the structure, but they brought in other positions as well. So the running of the operations is much higher than it was under the interim period, for sure. Must be, because just the more people that you have. I think the other challenge that I can see is office accommodation. Even those offices,
it's not enough.
Not enough. It was on the challenge was there on our IT side. We were held ransom by this one guy. We didn't have backups. All the people had laptops and the sticks, and everything was there. There was nothing on the central server where you could see what is on there and things like that. That is something we then also implemented, to have a proper server, outsource it to a proper company to run the IT for things like that, so we have backup and things like that. But I think generally it's back to square one before the normalization.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about women's football. It has always been the stepchild of the NFA. When you were there as the interim committee, the normalization committee, what measures did you put in place to make sure that women's football is taken care of? It's treated the same way as the men's football. I previously have traveled with the Brave Gladiators for COSAFA. We drive with the government bus from here. I think we drove to Zim. I also drove with them to Durban in 1 year. What is the difference now, or what did you put in place so that they are treated similar to the Brave Warriors?
I think from FIFA side, it's a push in your contract of agreed objectives, which is a strategic plan. Women's football must be there. So when we were there as an interim committee and things like that, we paid the same allowances to the players. For the ladies than we paid for the men, which was unheard of, which changed. I don't know whether there's no chance.
The allowances were equal?
Equal.
Wow.
We paid equal allowances for the Brave Warriors and the Brave Gladiators.
Wow. Okay, that's good news. I hope it's still continuing now.
No, that's, I don't know how things are happening now, because all I read and see is Brave Warriors. Nobody's talking about the Brave Gladiators at the moment. Everybody is pushing the start of the Premiership for the men, but what about the Women's Super League? Yeah. Nobody talks about it. I don't see anything like that. I see the lady that was elected on the council is no longer on the list. When you look at the letterheads, Monica's name is no longer there, so what happened there? Which is unconstitutional or not as per the statute. Something is wrong there. I don't know what. I'm out there, but as an outsider looking in, I can see something is wrong. Women's football, I don't know.
Yeah. By the way, Monica Sharpa was part of the council, but apparently her term ended, and so she doesn't sit on the board. And the NFA has not organized elections to elect somebody within the Women's League. We are trying to find out what's going on with that particular issue. And then now, if you now compare, you worked at SKW as president of the club. You put up all these structures to make sure that the development is going well at SKW. They have properties, SKW, in terms of the field. They've I think one of the best fields in the country at the moment. At one point in time, the Brave Warriors had to use SKW as their training field when they have their own technical center, which they couldn't use at that particular moment in time because it's not up to standard. When you compare now the work that you did at SKW and you compare the work that you did at NFA, which one was tough?
NFA.
Without a doubt.
NFA, without a doubt. Remember, SKW, you started building something up from new.
Yeah.
And it was a group of people that were enthusiastic, had the passion for it, and things went quickly and smoothly, and we got sponsors and things like it, and that was easy. But NFA was a troubled organization. And you come in and you try to change that, and you had to be sometimes very hardball with those people. And they were so ignorant, they just ignore it. And all they did is then they're just running, because remember, during that time, some people were still running football in the background.
Yeah.
And instigating those people in the office.
In the office, yeah. Now, your departure from the NFA, there were reports that you did not live peacefully.
No, not really.
You left before your contract.
Yeah, and the reason was simple. They wanted to appoint certain people, and I was refusing that, and I was not agreeing with that. And then, as like you said, the SG is a rubber stamp, and I became a rubber stamp because the council was starting to run the day office, which is wrong. And then when they said, okay, we want you to go months earlier, I said, oh, fine, then I go. Why should I sit there? Initially, they wanted me to have until the end of this year, but when they saw that I'm not on the same wave and I'm not agreeing with things like that, and it actually started with CAF, when the money that was spent there and the way...
And the AFCON.
The AFCON.
Yes.
AFCON thing. We started clashing, and the president had different ideas, and it was there, so I just left. It's
so the AFCON thing, I was going to ask you about it. How did we end up having the whole executive council except one member going to the AFCON? And what were they going to do?
That you must ask the president. Because I don't know. That was one of the questions. You have a budget, but now all of a sudden your whole council goes. I don't know. And then again, when we looked at the decisions, a lot of decisions were taken at AFCON, but there was just sort of like the trio that was running the CAF, the NFA, and the others were just sort of,
on the gravy train.
Yeah, on the gravy train, and just saying yes to whatever those three musketeers are saying.
Yeah, and the budget that was spent at CAF, where did it come from?
Most money came from government support and a little bit of sponsorship from the breweries, and we had through the project of agreed objectives that we had with the Normalisation Committee. There was money also available for AFCON, but far too little. But even the original budget that I had, with all the people going there and things like it was way above what was initially budgeted.
Was it necessary for them to go?
Honestly, no. I didn't go for the very same reason. I said, listen, there is a technical team, there is a coach, there's a team and everything. And then you don't interfere there. The coach is running the situation there. You go there as a spectator and mixing and just talking. It's important to be there because you talk to other stakeholders in football, other FAs and things like that, and then you share things like that. So it's important to be there. Yeah. But to have everybody there, I don't know. The president, for sure, when you have the opening games and things like that, it's a must. Yeah. He must be there. Because then, for him to be there, it's definitely a must.
But the head of delegation as well?
The head of delegation, but this person is more with the team. The head of delegation is just making sure for the teams and things like that. So the running of the things. So that is helping the team with all those things, the head of delegation. Yeah, but to have everything, and then staying in the most expensive hotels because the ones that were booked were not good enough and things like that. And remember, FIFA is seeing these things. they also take note of those things.
And now, speaking about the Three Musketeers, information also coming to our side is that there is an executive council member who is literally running the show on a day-to-day basis. When monies have to be signed off, that person is the one who's signing off those monies. If decisions have to be made, if letters have to be written, the letters come from him, and the SG just puts the signature and stamps, and that's the information that we're getting.
That's what I also experienced.
How difficult is it to tell these guys, this is not how you run? You have a CEO who is your general secretary. They are responsible for the day-to-day running of this institution. You are policy developers. You develop a policy, you give it to the CEO for implementation. But is there any need for them to run the institution on a daily basis? Or maybe is it because of what is happening within the workforce at the NFA that the council sees it fit to come and say, look, the SG is not really doing what he's supposed to do. Let us do it for him.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, could be. I mean, I experienced the same thing, interference in my day-to-day things. And then that the staff then bypassed me and went straight to the council. And when I said no, it's like children, you know, when you have a boy, a girl, or a kid, and mommy says no, she runs to dad, and dad says yes. And that's exactly what is happening there. You know, these spoiled. And that is what's happening there. And I'm sure the current SG is experiencing the same problems because there is day-to-day interference by council members, yes.
How toxic is that for a relationship, and how bad is it in terms of the future of the NFA?
It's bad because I mean that was when they said, look, I have to go a month earlier. I was more than happy to go because you can't work like that. I mean, if that relationship between your SG and your council is not right, I mean then there's something wrong. And now you've got the previous SG who is preferred by the council. I feel sorry for Charles.
The previous SG was let go by the Normalisation Committee before you came in, and there were court cases at the Labour Court. He challenged them. He lost that case at the Labour Court, and then he came back to the High Court and appealed, and the NFA did not challenge it at the High Court. Well,
that was the plan all the time. It's part of the...
Now, FIFA had provided funding for the NC to fight that case. Now, this case is not followed up, and the SG is back on a default judgment, and you can't go against the courts, the courts of the laws of the country. What now? What will FIFA say now?
No, I don't know. I've lost touch with our people. I was very tempted to find out from them, but I mean, I'm out of the picture at the moment, so I'm not going to sit there and back and things like that. But I know for sure this is not going down well. I mean, when the council came in and there were these discussions already that Cosmo should come back and things like that, and the message was very clear from FIFA, no. So FIFA and FA won the court case, so now you appeal. So why didn't you go on with the appeal? But that the president can only explain what they had, why they did that. But I mean, I just feel that I feel sorry for the SG now because it's human. Forget a person. I don't know Cosmos at all. It's just in any corporate environment, if you have an ex-CEO coming in underneath here, but you know that the board wants the CEO in your positions, bound to be problems. Bound to be problems.
What would be your advice to the current SG?
No, I don't know. I mean, I don't know him.
I mean, if it was you sitting there and you have this other ex-guy here, what would you be thinking, and what would you be contemplating to do?
No, I think, look, it always depends also on the person's economic situation and things like that. You need a job and you just can't stop it. But normally, if you're financially independent, then you would go. If that is, if what I'm speculating now is that if that is the situation, I don't know what the situation is there now. But it's just normal. If you the boss, now you sit here, and then you have this new guy in here, and you know you're the preferred candidate.
But what is your relationship now with the guys at the NFA? Because because of the way you left, how is the relationship?
No, I'm not in contact with them there because I just want to...
Is it a deliberate move?
Yeah, I think it's just to sort of like... Because if I'm starting to ask more questions and run around there, it might be thinking, you know, I'm trying to interfere and things like no. They must run the business now. FIFA will keep an eye on it. things will happen, positively or negatively, we don't know. At the moment, I'm concerned. What I can see and what I can read and what I see what's happening.
But as a football lover, you're very right, you should be concerned. In terms of your involvement in the future, what would it be?
No, look, I mean, again, if and I hope not it's happening again, should there be another normalization committee? I think we now have experience of what should change. What the normalization committee must have much more powers to get things implemented. And the first thing is basically clean the house from the inside properly with a mandate. Go the labor court route and do those things. But you have to. Or the other alternative is you liquidate NFA, shut NFA, and you create something new. It's a bold statement, I know. But if you can't change things, but something has to happen, because it's not going to change.
Liquidate is sort of a big.
It's a big thing, but
big call, yeah.
With all the labor issues and all those things that you have, and all the debt that you have, I don't know what they're doing with all the debt that's still there. There's still a lot of money outstanding.
Yeah, I was going to come to the debt. When the normalization committee came in, you were not there at that particular moment in time. We were told that the NFA was owing about 23 million to various service providers and stakeholders, your hotels, traveling, IT companies, any services that an institution like NFA would want to have. When you left, how was the debt?
It was around 10 to 11 million that was still outstanding. And FIFA did not, because we asked as the normalization committee to help us
pay
get money and pay that off. So it's now with the council. Not having seen their new budget, they must have a new budget, and that should have been presented to. There should have been a members' meeting, because they're certainly working on a different budget than the one that we proposed. And then the contract of agreed objectives must be signed off or also been informed by the members as well. I haven't seen anything. Look, this sad thing, but also maybe a good thing is, whatever goes out of the office, it's on social media the next day. Sometimes it looks like people in the office are sending out those letters.
How bad is that? You can see it that way, but I also see it differently. The fact that there is information that is available that the public should know, but that information is not being made available by the FA. For example, the Brave Gladiators team, we only saw the team being announced by COSAFA, but we've got the local media here that needs to tell the country who has been called up for the Brave Gladiators for the COSAFA that will be taking place this month. But it comes from South Africa. And as I'm sitting here as a journalist or as a football fan, as a Brave Gladiators fan, how does that sit with me? I can't read it on a New Era newspaper or which other newspaper or television, but I can get it from South Africa.
Yeah.
Why is the information being kept within inside? Because it creates distrust. If you are going to keep that information to yourself, I start distrusting you that Jochen is not telling me the truth.
No, it's true. That's a problem we also had. The communications department was one of the departments, which is a problem. There was not a website for years. There is now a website, but even then when the new council said, here's the council member's name. I said, but write a little CV underneath that. Everybody knows who that person is, what he's doing, blah, blah, blah. It's not happened. I was ignored. You can see the webpage now as well. It's not really being updated. Because the first thing you do is you go to a website and you get all the information and things like it. The leaks. The design of the website was like that by Monday, Tuesday, all the leaks, informations are on the website. It's not happening.
Then there was an issue with you. I tried reaching out to you, but I couldn't get answers. And the president gave me a few answers. The issue of the Zimbabwe trip.
Zimbabwe trip?
Yes, when we went to play a friendly in Zimbabwe.
Yes.
Yeah. Take us through that issue that was there.
The issue?
Yeah.
The money issue?
Yes, the money issue.
No, they got money.
Yes.
In cash, in hard cash.
Yes.
And then we couldn't bank it because there was no letter, because the bank is asking where you get this money from. So we had to get letters from Zimbabwe confirming this is many money.
And they were also under the Normalisation Committee.
Yes. And it was difficult to do it. And then we said, okay, keep the money. We use that now because the other issue that we always have is when the national teams travel is we need cash.
Hard cash.
Hard cash.
Yes.
And then the decision was to keep that hard cash. Because we had problems getting it banked. We said, okay, for them we use that money. And if the team manager goes, you give him the hard cash. Because like even in Abidjan and things like that, there was an issue with credit cards. You had to have cash. So this is why the money was saved by me. And when we gave we paid from that money for the national teams when they didn't need it, they used it. That was the reason.
Oh, okay.
There was not a money. There was no intention to keep the money away. I mean, that is just not the way.
Yeah.
But that was the reason.
Yeah. And now looking at it, you are still involved in football, at one way or the other.
No, not really directly, but I'm still following, looking at what's happening.
I mean, in terms of administration,
no, at the moment I'm not
but
involved.
would we see you in the future, maybe being a president of maybe SKW or starting your own football club?
No.
Why not?
No,
with the experience that you have in terms of administration and whatever.
No, I'd rather stick and help SKW if it needs to be. If they have to. Now they've also been relegated in the second division. So I think there needs to be some rebuilding. But I think doing the youth football it's doing SKW good. Looking after the infrastructure. And then it's up to the current management there to SKW to decide what they want to do. I'm more than willing to help. I for the Premiership now to become independent again. Remember the sponsorship and that letter and things like that, and they're looking into it. I'm more than willing to help those people. I already talked to some. Listen, do you need something to help? Because I've got time. Because it needs a lot of time and experience and things like it. And we'll see how that goes.
That's exactly what I was saying, that, you know, with your experience and your knowledge that you have, some of these problems can be solved, especially with the Premiership being taken away from the NFA and being run independently. And now we have seen also the issue of clubs, the Namibia Correctional Services and Blue Boys. That rule, can you please clarify to us how you understand it?
No, I think the decision what the NFA was right, because we had those discussions under the Normalisation Committee as well. Because you had the Gunners and the Okahanya, the argument was there. So we were pre-warned, but I mean that will sort itself out later on. So it's basically the owner, and the owner is the ministry, and this is where the conflict. So what the NFA have done is perfectly right, because that is as per the statutes. On the other hand, however, if you have institutions that can fund themselves, like correctional services, they will provide vehicles, the players will get food and things like it. It will help development of football, because you have now those Premiership teams that have a little bit more of their own funding. They're not depending on only the funds that you get from the sponsor. So that is, it's two ways.
But now we are saying these guys are owned by the two teams, the Namibia Correctional Services and NAMPOL. We are saying that they are owned by one principal only, or one minister. But then the money that comes to the ministry comes from the central government. And UNAM also gets funding from the central government. And Mighty Gunners also gets funding from central government. Albeit different ministries.
Oh, you mean the ultimate is the government?
Yes.
Okay, that's the argument, yeah. If you can argue that way, that's another way. I mean, then it's difficult, but I mean, at least the ministry is a separate entity, and then you can say you're coming out and you've got all those ministries.
And number one. Number two, ministries change all the time. Previously, the Correctional Services was not under the same ministry as Home Affairs. So what we are going to elections in November, and in January a new cabinet will be announced. If those two are separated, what do we do?
So the new government used to be telling the new government split this.
No, I'm saying if they split it now, what are we going to do?
No, I don't know. But as per the statutes, that decision is right. In Botswana, half of the leagues is government-owned teams.
Yes.
Because they don't have that clause in their statutes, so they can do it. So it's up to the council then, maybe change the clauses and things like that.
So does that clause work for our country right now? That's why I was going to that. Is it good for the development of football? as it stands?
Yeah, look, when you had ownership in mind, you had basically private ownerships in mind. Let's say African Stars has all the money and they buy another club and they run another club with a different name and a premiership. You know, that is what you had in mind of, or like, let's say Musepe in South Africa.
Yes.
He has a club and then he buys another club and another club. I mean, he has the money to do it. And then you have one owner, which is now a private entity, not government. You don't want that. And that is what, when you do the statutes, that is what you had in mind.
Yeah. Well, it's a tough one, but we have seen also in other countries like Zambia and Zimbabwe, you find they have 3 or 4 different teams from the military. These ones are Air Force. The other one is whatever the regular.
Their statutes don't make provision for that. So
and it works very well. The league is competitive. They continue. The league is competitive. They produce quality football. I think we can also do the same. And also, if you look at the player welfare, at the end of the day, at the end of their playing careers, what we have seen a lot of our local players, they have nothing to show. When their career ends, they go back to their parents' house, they start struggling in the streets, asking for money to live by. Whereas if they go to the correctional services, they get absorbed by the correctional services, and then they have money until they are 65 and they have pension at the end of it.
And like I said, I understand the arguments. It's a two-sided sword. But at the moment, the NFA, it has to be bound by the statutes. So this is what they've done, and that's fine, because, I mean, there was the outcry previously as well. I mean, so it's not the first time. So I think the decision was right. It's just maybe now the council must think about and maybe change the statutes and make provision for these things. Because, I mean, through these things you learn. I mean, your statutes is not cast in concrete.
All right, then moving on now to youth football. We saw the under-20s now. SKW is a big club that focuses on youth development. I think their second division team was made of under-19, under-17 players. I watched quite a few matches of theirs in the previous season. It looks like even with all these academies, we're not producing quality players. Should those academies be regulated by the NFA to train the players at the academy in a certain way?
Look, if you follow the contract of agreed objectives, the very first one, where it said premiership, or like the Windhoek Declaration, for example, which is basically very much the same. You have your premiership club, and to be in a premiership, you must have a second division team or under 20 team, like South Africa has its under 23 league, where those teams then play in the under 20, so they have a bigger squad, and you play under 23 league. And then you have women's football and youth development. You cannot be in a premiership if you don't have youth teams underneath it. Yeah. Only then it will happen, that will change, because at the moment, as I said, there's a lot of academies. But some of them are just there making money for the owners. They're not really bringing football forward. Now, if you have too many teams with too little, with not proper football, it brings down the quality of football. It's another thing that I wanted to address. It's like when I said this, our structure, with our 14 regions, 33 leagues, we've got a lot of quantity. But with all those many things, you don't have quality.
How do we correct that?
No. One of the ideas we popped around and the normalization committee was you create zones, like Botswana is running in zones. So you create only 4 or 5 zones. South, central, the north, you play a lot. Because the sustainability of all those leagues is very expensive. Now you create zones and you concentrate more players into the things. And then it will then, because the structure is, you select for more people, so you're always a little bit better, so you have better quality of players. And it's more sustainable. But there will be resistance to it, because I think the Namibians by nature are against change, because I know some of those regions has to be dismantled and put together, and then they have this individual positions and lobbying and things like that. What you see now with the clubs, such a sad things that clubs like Orlando Pirates and BA are getting relegated out of things. Why? It's because of individuals within the hierarchy. And who suffers? Football and the players.
How much money is there in football? It's a question that I've always wanted to ask. I'm sorry I'm diverting, but because when we talk about clubs like Orlando Pirates, Black Africa, and so on and so forth, it looks like it's a money issue. People believing that there's so much money in football.
There's not much money in football. I think that is the misnomer that everybody makes. They think there's a lot of money, and they hear, okay, FIFA is giving another $1 million here. There is not a lot of money because of the lack of sponsorships. And why the lack of sponsorships? Because the sponsorship goes normally, the money goes to the club and it goes to individuals and not really to the club. And if you investigate some of those clubs that were in the Premiership and the individuals running that football and things like it, and the thing is, they close this club and open up a new club, and then close it there, and then just follow some of those. One day I said, look, football. The problem with football in Namibia is not everybody is like that, but a lot of them are failed politicians or failed entrepreneurs, and then they think they can make money in football now.
So they go there with the idea of going to make money.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've seen it in the very first council meeting. It was all about money. People interfering there, all about money. No, it's people think there's money, and then the first thing is money for themselves. My days at SKW, and all the people that were running there with it when we had the Premiership team, I used my car, my petrol, my pocket money for traveling to Rundu, all those things. We did a lot of it. I was passionate. Yes, we had a job, we had the money, that's fine. But that is now, there's this misnomer or this perception, there's money. If you get in football, you make money. Forget it. I don't think so.
So maybe our football is the way it is right now because of selfish people go to football to get money from football rather than investing in football.
You can definitely see it in the academies. Just look at all those academies and investigate each of those academies which are really producing players or which are just there for money and how they do it. You just have a look. And then even if you look at some of those regions, the problems that were there in the regions, money was given, money disappeared, not accountable for all the things. I mean, that's another thing that we implemented now. Is, if you want money from, then there must be a budget, and then you must show where the money goes. Like FIFA is doing for the NFA. NFA has implemented the same thing now for the regions and things like it. So,
finally, infrastructure. Infrastructure. You were there when the Brave Warriors, they are still doing it anyway. We'll see now they are playing in South Africa. The issue of infrastructure in the country. I mean, how is SKW able to run such a beautiful stadium, attract so many people to use that stadium, and still maintain it the way it's maintained? And the clubs, I think it's SKW and Ramblers and maybe one or two Rundu Chiefs, Swakopmund FC, that have got their own thing. But the big clubs, they don't have their own stadiums. Where are we lacking?
I think, remember, all those big clubs had properties pre-independence, where they had properties and it was sold and went to somebody's pockets. Tigers had, Stars had, Pirates had, they all had facilities. Grounds,
pieces of land, yeah.
Piece of land where they could have developed it. So, ask what happened to those things. Now they need new land again. Fine. I see Ongos is doing something now as a private club. But it's a lot of money. But I mean, to be honest, I mean, the SKW has this events like the Oktoberfest, the Carnival, but the football division is managing itself, and the money comes through the academy. In my time, our coaches in the academy were volunteers. All those coaches today are paid. Maintaining the field, the water and electricity account is in the hundreds of thousands per year. But it's a management issue. And then all the people that are running football there at the moment, the Vincents and Arendt and whoever, they do it for free. And this is where the change comes in. People they're going to football and will not do things for free anymore. And I think this is where the clubs are struggling. You have one or two individuals that have the passion, but then there's nobody else to supporting it. This is where the question comes in ownerships. Should it be community or not? SKW is a good example of a community club, and it's working. Where the others wanted to move away from, when they were community, they were successful, then the owners came in or something like that, and things started going wrong.
The Brave Warriors with infrastructure.
Yeah, coming to infrastructure. First of all, the question that needs to be raised: why was it allowed that this infrastructure so being dilapidated as it is? First of all, because you can build another stadium, 2, 3, 4 of them, and you'll run into the same problem because it will not be maintained properly. You don't need a new stadium. You upgrade Independence and make sure the lawn gets water. You pay your water and electricity bill, and the lawn is watered, and then you can play. Then I have a problem with CAF and FIFA. When they come and say we must have a 50,000 stadium, we cannot even fill Independence.
Which is about 20, 25?
No, it's not. I know it's about 12,000, something like that.
Yeah.
We cannot even fill up that on a regular basis. I mean, I've seen it 3 times now. One was Independence, then there was this, the Gladiators, the Brave Warriors against Bafana when we won. That day it was full. And then now 2 times when we had the Hage Cup, not the Hage Cup, yeah, it was the Hage Cup.
Even the Hage Cup, yes.
When it was full. And then there was the first opening game, I think. No, that wasn't, we had it was at the rugby stadium.
Yeah, the rugby stadium, yeah. Chula and African Stars and UNAM.
Yeah, yes. The opening game, it was, But again, generally you will not fill up those stadiums with football. But
having been the SG and having said at these CAF meetings, did you explain to CAF, because I have the same problems with CAF, that you can't expect Namibia to have the same stadium with a country like South Africa. South Africa is a population of 60, 70 million, and we are only 3 million. And you want us to have a similar stadium like South Africa, when we know that in terms of numbers, we will not fill up that stadium. In terms of the money that you pay for the maintenance to get into a stadium, which is then used to maintain the stadium, it won't be enough. So why do we then need a stadium with bucket seats, which is said is for safety purposes, when we have 12,000 people in the stadium?
You see, this is where I blame CAF. I mean, why bucket seats? Number one, you have to replace them every 3 to 5 years because the sun will damage those things. Now you've got those concrete or steel things like Oshakati Stadium. It's not breakable. People cannot break those things. Look, when we had our games at the rugby stadium, all the steel chairs that were broken there, because yes, they had sun already, so they were vulnerable. Now the people come in there and stand on it and cheer on it, it breaks. This is where I do not understand CAF. They say they must be able to count. I mean, you can take a camera today and you zoom the camera and there's an app that counts every person and you know exactly how many people are there. I mean, so CAF into one, even when you look at the setup of things that you must have. They say, for example, you must have a safety officer. And he might not do anything else than safety in the office or at the games now. It increases your running of your costs. You cannot share that with club licensing. Like we wanted to have club licensing and security making one person, and then because he's not fully occupied. Now with the club licensing, you must have an employee, just club licensing. You must have an employee, just safety. While you can actually combine some of those functions, give them the training, and you have a more sustainable organization. So CAF in some ways is causing also problems that the running of association becomes expensive.
How much were you spending for the Brave Warriors to play in South Africa?
3 million and above, minimum 3 million.
A match?
A match. It's stadium rentals, it's security, extra accommodation, extra travel. Now I can see, for example, because some of the CAF rules there, the technical team gets bigger and bigger and bigger. They need per diems, salaries and things like that. Reduce that. So there are 3 million every time.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
If we play...
And then remember, you don't even get gate money. Because if you want to have gate monies, this is why there was an example, there was no social media, why is there spectators? For that you must get extra security in, extra things like it. And we don't have so many Namibians in South Africa like Zimbabweans have. So they will fill up it easily, but Namibians will not.
Then the home team has a disadvantage of playing a home match with more away supporters. Yeah. So you agree with the NFA's decision not to allow fans to come in for the Zimbabwe matches? Yeah, because you won't get the money, gate-taking money out there for the few people that we've done it in the past, and it didn't work. The security, I mean, here you talk tens of thousands. There you talk hundreds of thousands every time. So 3 million a match in South Africa. Isn't that money that the NFA can invest wisely?
Remember, yeah. I saw the other day Carlos Kambuk was saying, listen, don't put in international teams until we've got stadiums fixed and things like that. I mean, that's a little bit of blackmailing. But if you don't have the money, don't participate. Like the interim, the normalisation committee didn't go to Chan because there was no money. And FIFA didn't support those things. It was just the CAF FIFA funded things. The only way is put on the brakes. Remember when I did my interview with the normalisation committee for the position, my first thing on the slide was pressing the reset button. And that's basically what needs to be done. Press the reset button, start from scratch. Make sure stadiums are in place, everything is in place first, and then you play internationally. And then you focus for 3-4 years on youth development, proper youth league structures in the regions. And not only, newspaper cup is fine, it's one or so, and then you select your under 20. That's not enough. The selectors or the coaches must be able to see the players play
on a regular basis,
because this player there, this weekend he's on a high and he's performing, and the next moment you call him up and he's useless. I would focus much more on youth development first. If I would now do the strategic planners for the next 5 years, youth development, girls and boys, you ladies, and then...
When you were SG, what was your discussion with government regarding the infrastructure?
No, look, government has to follow procurement processes. And this is the other thing they have. And then, again, and I'm glad to see when President Pohamba says, when there's always these tenders from government and there's this exploitations and over pricing and things like that. And that's exactly where they're sitting there. You should not pay 20-30 million to upgrade independence. Upgrade it, fix the infrastructure there and things like that, and then get a plan and say, okay, fine, we do this now. The pitch must be right, the lights must be right, make sure your change rooms and these things are up to standards and things like that. And then you go to CAF and negotiate and say, listen, in 5 years we will do this and this, but there must be a plan. Because to spend now, and the mistake government always makes is, we have a budget of 15 million to do that, or 30 million to do that. And of course those tenderers will come in with 30 million and more. Don't give the money away. Listen. And then there's also in the stadium, what I learned is, a little mafia. The South African stadium building mafia that's involved in advising and putting in there. I'm sure our locals will be able to do that.
Now, talking about the tender issue, can't government put a tender exemption for the upgrading of the stadium and say, look, we're not going to put it on tender. We'll get Windhoek Builders or Shakati Builders company, or this company that is a Namibian company, to come and we give them the specs that we need to do A, B, C, D, and we allow them to do that.
Yeah, then comes again the accusation of preference, and the tender process is still a clean process, but it's
been 3 years now.
No, I know, and then the problem is that those consultants that come and advise are part of those cliques, and they make sure that their people come in. The consultants. This is why when we made the bid for AFCON for Bona, the prices they brought in, they were ridiculous. I think with a good example is what we can do. Follow what Ongos is doing now. When they get the stadiums done, and see what that has costed and what government will have to pay. Just keep an eye on that, and you'll see what a huge difference there is. Ongos is privately driven, and they will cut costs, and they will manage it, and they will build it for most probably half the price than what government would pay for a stadium.
Talking about Bona, did you believe in Bona as the normalization committee, and how good or how important was Bona going to be for Namibian football?
Look, any exposure and things like that, I think from an infrastructure point of view, besides the fields, but like hospitality, transport, we could do it. We could do it, and we have the people to do it. That I had no doubt about that. It was just about the money that you had to put in to get those stadiums in as per the CAF regulation. That the media said, look, it's not affordable.
But did you believe we could have got it? Had we put our eggs in a row?
No, I don't think so. But there's a process. I mean, that was the first bit. You can't normally win on the first bit. But then you go through a learning curve. But just the bid proposal already costs so much money. Exorbitant amounts of money.
Okay, Traut, thank you very much for your time. We could speak about football for the rest of the day.
Yes.
And thank you for really the advice that you gave us and the answers that you gave us. We hope to see you back in football. Please don't teach football. Your experience is needed.
I'm still be around. I'm sure I'll be back in one way or another.
Thank you very much for that. And it is that time of the day where we have to say goodbye to you. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back again next week with another episode of Game Time with Marco.